Aha.
Okay, we appear to be live. Sorry about that, folks. Couple of minutes late, but here we are. This is Mark Devlin, and this is a True Nature of This Reality live stream. First one we've done. I'm joined by my buddy Hitesh. Welcome along, mate.
Hello. We are back. I'm so excited for this. Thanks for having me back on. And I just want to say thank you to all your audience for the warm welcome after the last discussion that we had, and for some of the positive comment. I know the comment section exploded on that video, didn't it? And thank you for the emails and for the kind words. So it's great. I'm looking forward to see what this brings.
No worries. So you're going to stay behind the graphic, which I totally support. I've got my mug on the screen because there's got to be some sort of movement. Nobody wants to look at me on their screen, but you got to look at something, right?
Sure.
So we're going to be taking comments from viewers in terms of not just questions, we're welcoming questions, but also comments and statements and observations. So if anyone just wants to, get their two penneth in, then feel free to drop that in the comments. Welcome along to Sarah, Sean, OHAM. Who else? I think OHAM is in the States, 4 a.m. there. So respect getting up at 4 a.m. to watch this. And big shout out to everyone watching on YouTube. So it is, of course, the day referred to as Easter Sunday. And some might think it's apt that we're doing this broadcast on this date. We're not doing this to be deliberately provocative. But if any Christians get offended at this, it's worth considering that Easter is a festival, a time of the year, which is steeped in solar and lunar worship, because it goes back way before the establishment of so-called Christianity. So Easter Sunday is defined as the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox. So the sun and the moon are entirely involved in the timing of Easter Sunday. That's what it is. And the myth of the figure of Jesus Christ rising from the dead after 3 days in the tomb is a reference symbolically to the winter solstice, where the sun, in what's referred to as the northern hemisphere, is seen to be at its lowest point on the horizon, and it symbolically dies for 3 days at the time of the winter solstice, and then it rises again on the morning of 25th of December, Christmas Day. So that's what Christmas is all about. It's celebrating the rebirth of the Son of God, not the S-O-N, that's wordplay. That word was deliberately inserted in the English language because it's really referring to the S-U-N of God, because it's all about the sun. It's solar worship. And these are metaphors and allegories concerning the movements of the sun. And then when we get to Easter, you get lunar cycles coming in as well. So that's what it is. It's been obfuscated, and a lot of false information has been put out about this time of year and this festival and what it represents. But that's what it is. And for anyone that might get triggered by that observation, and for anyone that might feel to lash out at me for delivering it, I think this is going to be the subject of my next so-called God video. And the message is going to be, don't get mad at messengers, because messengers are merely reporting a situation that was put into place by other forces, other powers. So if you want to get mad at the true nature of this realm and what goes on within it, don't get mad at somebody pointing out these things. Get mad at the architect of this realm, right? Whatever force or entity created it. And this is the crazy thing. We're doing these videos and we're left guessing the true nature of the architect, because none of us know for sure. Many people will claim to have the answers and claim to be the experts and claim to be the ones that can point you towards some religious text or other. But ultimately, we're all just guessing, because the madness, the insanity of finding ourselves in this realm is that none of us know for sure what we're doing here, what this place is, who or what created it. And these are the things that we're trying to consider on this live stream today. We don't claim to have the answers. I mean, we're calling it a Q&A, but by no means do Hitesh and myself claim to have any of the answers, because nobody does. All we have is the questions and our best guesses or speculations as to what the answers could be. So I'll just preface everything by saying that. And anything to add there, Hitesh?
No, well said. And just on the back of what you said, this is not intended to offend anyone of any religious background. I have friends who belong to strong religious backgrounds, and this is just a place where we're coming from of our observations. Like I said, it's not intended to offend anyone. And interesting what you said about the Christmas thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Christmas celebrated before the I don't know if we want to call it alleged or not, birth of Christ? It goes back even further than that. With
For sure. It was a pagan festival, and it celebrated the rebirth of the sun at the time of the winter solstice. But all kinds of other things have been inserted into Christmas symbolically, including psilocybin mushrooms, so-called psychedelics. Like there was a particular type of mushroom which was consumed in certain Nordic traditions, and it was red and white spotted, and so it was seen to resemble the coat worn by Father Christmas, the red and the white. That's where that comes from. And people that would ingest this mushroom would undergo this sort of out-of-body experience where they felt like they were flying. And this is where the idea of Santa Claus flying through the sky, pulled by his reindeer on his sleigh, comes from. So that's been inserted in there. And there's just loads of traditions, Saturnalia coming from the Roman tradition and Yule coming from Nordic traditions. It's one big melting pot of influences. And that just makes it all the more difficult to pinpoint its exact origins. But we can know that it's absolutely steeped in symbolism and allegory. And then the idea of Jesus, this apparent historical figure coming along, was inserted much later. These traditions have been in place for centuries by then.
Wow, yeah. And there's a Gnostic Jesus as well. I haven't done a lot of research into that area of Gnosticism, but there is a fair bit there to look into. But yeah, no, it's interesting because I talk about, especially nowadays, the spiritual realm has been corrupted. So people will say, well, okay, I no longer subscribe to religion. I'm going to the spiritual area, and not knowing that, well, that side has been corrupted as well. And they've got this thing now where I call them spiritual con men or con women. And you'll hear this phrase, well, they say love and light to you. And love is in reference to matrix love, not monadic love, and the light is in reference to the light of the soul trap. Love and light, soul trap, light, and all the symbolisms in there as well, in the things to look out for. And once you start sort of delving into the I'm not saying Gnosticism has all the answers, but once you start sort of looking into that, you start picking out the loopholes in the New Age spiritual realm as well.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't describe myself exactly as a Gnostic, but I'm certainly more aligned to the way that group viewed things than any other tradition that I've come across. I think they're more on the money than any others, just my personal instinctive feeling, because I don't know about you, but I've been through many different belief systems in my life. So I was raised nominally a Christian, not that my parents were Christians, but I went to a C of E school and we used to go to church and learn about Jesus and God and sing hymns and stuff. So that was instilled in me from an early age. Then when I was about 19, I gravitated towards a Christian church because I was feeling differently about the world and my life and my place in things. And I was seeking answers, didn't know where to look for them. This was pre-internet. And I got lured into this Christian evangelical church. So I attended that for 4 years. I found that to be a very disillusioning experience. I saw a lot of hypocrisy. I saw a lot of people in the church, particularly the elders, not living the kind of life they were espousing for others. And I left quite bitter and cynical. And it caused me to become an atheist. And I was an atheist for about 15 years. I just thought there was no meaning in anything. And then I kind of drifted towards the New Age spiritual stuff. So I sort of woke up to conspiracy issues and became a truther. And I think within the truther field, there's this de facto default kind of spiritual state where you're encouraged or coerced into taking on these New Age spiritual ideas. you know, the idea that these lives are pre-planned, that somewhere in the spiritual realm, before we incarnated into these physical bodies, we constructed a plan for ourselves in terms of where we would be born, the sort of life we would have. And this idea that life is all about lessons, you know, and karma is real. If you live a good moral life and try to be a decent person and help others, you will reap consequences that are, you know, consistent with that. And as I mentioned in my last God video, I've since come to realize that the opposite is actually the case. The better a person you try and be, and the more good work you do, the more bad stuff, the more shit that you seem to reap in your life. So I've been through all these different ideas and belief states and systems. I've done the New Age spiritual thing. I've come out the other side. I can see it's just as fraudulent as all the established orthodox religions. And I think that's why it's there. This whole New Age spiritual thing aimed at truthers is intended to capture in a net those who have rejected mainstream religions and seen through the fraud of them. So it's been created probably by the same forces that created the religions ultimately to ensnare all these people and try and get them into this other belief system, which is just as restrictive and just as steeped in mind control. And I think when you can break free of all of that, including the New Agey sort of ideas, it's very liberating. And that's where you find yourself at the point that we're at, which is asking these big questions. So you look at it apophatically. You throw out that which is not. This is the apophatic method of approaching a situation. You know, it's very difficult to say what something is, but you can definitely say what it's not. So you eliminate that which it's not, and then you see what you're left with, and anything else becomes fair game. So the truth behind what this realm is, who created it, and such, cannot be explained, is not explained by orthodox religions, and it's also not explained by these more recent New Agey sort of spiritual ideas. So that's off the table. Whatever remains on the table, the answer is somewhere within that, but there's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, you know, before I got into all this, that sort of our new way of thinking, apart from the pain element of it, I didn't really have much fear of death. But now I have to be honest, I'm a little bit anxious. Is Yildibayoth waiting for us up there, and he's got something? And it's like, you know, because you do get a bit anxious because you don't want to fall into the soul trap again. I certainly don't want to come back. So I'm like, gosh, I just wish me good luck. I hope I get out and stay out, because I don't want to come back. But you think, well, what if I fail? So all these thoughts kind of go in your head, and you're like, gosh, what if I do follow the light, and what if they give me an offer I can't refuse, because we don't know what they've got in store for us. We just don't know. Yes, it's all a guessing game, but we can only do our best.
Well, again, this is the insanity of this realm. There's a point in early childhood where we become conscious of the fact that we exist. For most people, I guess that happens around the age of 3, something like that. And you find yourself in this big, scary world. You got no idea how you got here. You don't remember signing up for it. You don't remember anything before you came in. And you're just left to get on with it. And you've got all these people claiming to have the answers. You'll have religious types saying, my text has all the answers. You've got to believe in my savior figure. Otherwise, you're going to go to hell. And that's inculcated in children from a very early age in many traditions. I mean, how traumatizing is that? But ultimately, you just find yourself abandoned and alone. There's no manual. There's no guidebook as to how you should be living. People will claim that they've got the guidebook and the manual, but it's not really. It's just mind control. It's been politicized. And you're just left to get on with it and find these answers for yourself. And it's got to the point for me personally where I'm even questioning whether the reincarnation soul trap is real or whether that's more misinformation. I actually hope it is, because it's such a horrific idea. I hope that it's disinformation that's been put out there to create fear and trauma. This is actually one of the comments that I want to read out in a short while and get people's reactions to. But, you know, even that has a big question mark hanging over it for me. So I actually find myself in alignment in many cases with atheists. I'm not right back in my atheistic mind state of several years ago, because back then I subscribed to the idea. I used to read Richard Dawkins. I mean, imagine that. I used to believe that we were like a cosmic accident. It was all random chance. Consciousness is just brain activity, and evolution and all this stuff. I can't believe I believed in that at the time.
Same
But
here.
yeah, you did.
Yeah, I went through it. Yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you. Do apologize. Yeah. No, I went through the same thing in my teenage years. Yeah, I went through the atheist period, bought into the theory of evolution, to the schooling indoctrination. Yeah, and then you go through all these phases in life, and then to get to where we are now.
That's right. So I'm not atheistic in that way now, because obviously I recognize the presence of some sort of creative force. We're here, we exist, we're self-aware, therefore something, some force created us and everything around us. So it makes no sense to be an atheist in terms of denying the existence of some sort of what we'd call God. But I'm kind of aligned with atheism in terms of wondering whether there's any point to anything. I guess that's nihilism as well. But basically, we did that show about the Gnostic creation myth where you unpacked all that stuff brilliantly. And I've kind of gravitated towards those ideas, but now I find myself even questioning those. And is the soul trap real? It's just insane how we don't have any of these answers.
Yeah, I have gone through that myself, because if you research the soul trap area, there's so many different takes on it, and I think we did talk about this in the discussion, that this people have their own way of getting out of the soul trap, and there's so many of them that you come to a point where you even say, well, is even the soul trap real? Because there's so many different takes on it. It's just got ridiculous now, and even I've sometimes woken up at mornings and thinking, well, I think the soul trap maybe needs to be questioned, because now it's got so out of hand. Are you familiar with the YouTuber Jeff Mara?
Yes, I've seen his interviews.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, they're not bad. The only issue I have with them is you get through 50 of them, you'll get to the end, and you'll be no better off to when you started, because people come on the show and it'll be like, okay, this is my way of getting out of the soul trap, and someone else will come on and say, no, my way's the right way. And I remember someone coming on and explaining the memory wipe, and they used to say, well, we get electrocuted somewhere out there and go through so many volts to get our memory wiped, and then get sent here. And you hear some things, and then you wonder, well, I haven't heard that from anywhere else, only you. So how do I know you're right? And you could go on with this for a whole lifetime and still be very confused. And I think the best thing you can do is it's good to have direction and just go with what I guess makes I don't know, maybe not fully 100% subscribe to one idea, but just be open to maybe a set of ideas just to get some sort of grounding on this.
Yeah, so I think the takeaway from all of that is, if anybody came on this show today wanting all the answers and expecting all the answers and for us to have them, you're going to be disappointed, because all we've got is a whole bunch of questions. But I think a lot of people are finding some solace in the fact that guys like us are prepared to go out there and even ask the questions. This is some of the feedback I've been getting to the videos that I've been putting out. People have said, it's so good to know that I'm not alone. I've had these ideas for so long and there's nobody I can talk to about them. It reminds me of the COVID era, when I was getting a lot of emails from people saying, oh, I'm the only one that can see it's all fraudulent. Every family member or friend that I speak to thinks I'm crazy. I've been ostracized by society. And then the very next email that I'll read will be somebody else saying the same thing in a completely different city. And they'll say, I feel so alone. I'm like the only one in my city that can see all this. And I remember thinking at the time, if only these people could know how many emails I'm getting of this nature and how many people are saying, oh, I feel so alone. you wouldn't feel so alone anymore, because you'd realize that there are hundreds of thousands of people that are seeing things in this way. And it's kind of getting that way with all this stuff, questioning the true nature of reality. I'm getting a lot of feedback now from people saying it's felt so lonely these past few decades where nobody seems to want to discuss this stuff. But now there's a whole bunch of people that are prepared to have the discussion and want the discussion. And we're finding each other and we're supporting each other. And that's a very positive thing when you realize that you're not as isolated as you thought you were. So I think that's the main value of doing shows like this, is making people realize that there is actually a whole community of us out there questioning this stuff. And when you realize it's not just you, you're not crazy, I think it helps. It just helps people.
Yeah, definitely. We ought to do another Q&A just on COVID. That's a whole kettle of fish on its own, isn't it? But imagine that, like,
I've done enough on that, mate. No more.
Oh gosh, yeah, madness. Oh, by the way, were you at the digital ID protest at the end of last year? I don't know if you were you...
No, I didn't go to that one. I was at all the
Oh.
COVID ones, but I didn't do that one.
Yeah, I actually attended that. I was in that protest, and what was worrying me was the most of the demographic who attended were 40+ age bracket. There were hardly any young people there.
Well, you're doing well to find people in their 40s, because it's been my experience that most of the, well, not the protest, that the COVID thing was getting people of all ages, but all these talks and presentations that I do, talking about the music industry and wider conspiracy issues, the audience demographic is generally the 50 to 70 age group. So you'd be hard pressed to find anyone under 50 at those.
Yeah, I guess the older you are, you can see the transition from young to, the changes in the world, whereas, growing up, maybe it's a bit harder to see.
That's what it is. And it's just a big shame that more younger people aren't taking an interest in these issues. Or if they are, they're not turning up to events to have that kind of fellowship with people of a like mind. And really, we need to be engaging people of the younger generation, because, when you get to the 50 to 70 demographic, the controllers of this realm are just waiting for us to fall off and take all that knowledge and all that wisdom that we've accumulated with us. And then they just want to do a number on the next generation down. So it's very important that that generation is, conditioned towards critical thought. But anyway, I just want to go through some of the comments here before we lose track of them, and then we'll get into some discussion points. So Melvin says, this realm is built on fraud. Who is believing NASA? Who's believing these wars? It's all made up. So NASA apparently launched their latest rocket to the moon on the morning of April 1st. Go figure. Just mockery, straight satanic mockery, April Fool's Day. They're telling you that it's fraudulent. They're telling you that it's one big utter farce. And unfortunately, there are people believing it, which is incredible. Mark is a Freemason. Oh shit, I'm rumbled. Geordie Racer. Oh my God. Yeah, you've caught me out. Yep. I'm an MI6 agent, a Satanist, and a Freemason. I'm done. I'm finished.
Oh, yeah.
Geordie's, yep, he's called me out. Damn. Did you watch Wayne Bush versus Video Gnosticism, Another Layer of the Matrix? No, I didn't see that. I actually interviewed Wayne Bush. Are you familiar with him?
Not heard of him, no.
Yeah, I interviewed him, must be about 15 years ago, and he was presenting the soul trap idea, the reincarnation soul trap. And at the time, this was an entirely new idea for me, and it was horrific. It was horrifying to have to consider this possibility. But Wayne was laying it all out, and he was laying out all the clues that we find in popular culture and entertainment that point towards it, songs and movies and things of this nature. And when I started showing an interest in this subject area about 2 years ago, early 2024, I tried to get Wayne back on because I wanted to get his more recent ideas on all this stuff. And unfortunately, he politely declined and said he's not doing interviews anymore, which is a great shame because could have had a really good discussion with him. But evidently, he's still putting out his own videos. He's just not jumping on podcasts as... Oh, we got a proper hater here. Geordie Racer, Devlin the DJ nobody's ever heard of. What you doing here then, pal? Wasting your time, nothing better to do with your life on the weekend. You're calling me out, and yet here you are, spending your time. So Must have a very empty life. What else we got? It makes sense in a way that reverse karma. You can't get rich from working, but you can from scamming people. Yep, true. Matrix is real, 69. Everything is inverted. That is why being good is called the narrow path. In a good world, the narrow path would be doing crime and evil. Yes. My good friend Sean, it really is not a coincidence that most good people in this realm end up getting an unnatural amount of trauma and negative situations being dumped on them. And that's been my observation as well. It's observable, testable, and repeatable.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I've experienced that in my own life. Like I've had one instance where in the morning I've been like really joyful about something, and then in the afternoon I've had like some bad news or something. So interestingly, on your last video when you said there's some, it's not so much, I don't think there's like one archon per individual, like checking a box saying, oh, he's had a bit of happiness today, let's give him a bit of unhappiness in the afternoon. I think that's micromanaging, and that's too hard to believe that 6 billion people in the world are being managed that way. I mean, my belief is more along the lines of there's some kind of artificial parent code system in place that maybe controls a bunch of people, that is auto regulated to configure it so that if there's a certain amount of high vibration in your life, then it'll trigger some low vibration to kind of balance it out. And that's what my theory is on that. Yeah.
That pretty much aligns with my thinking. It's all to do with the coding. It's all to do with the way this reality has been programmed. And it's not overseen by any moderators. It's not like there's entities watching in real time and dishing out certain consequences. It's just left to run itself like an AI program.
Yeah.
And if you have too much joy and happiness, like if you reach a certain point and the scales get tipped in that direction, the coding sees to it that consequences are sent your way to negate or offset or overwrite the joy and the happiness that you've just experienced. Interestingly, it does seem to happen to a certain type of people more so than others. So we all know what we would refer to as normies, people that just seem to drift and glide through life, and they're entirely aligned with this realm of existence. They seem really well suited here. And we probably all know people that seem to have really happy lives. And, you know, they smile and they laugh and they don't take anything seriously. And if bad things happen to them, they just brush it off and say, oh, well, you know, such is life, just the way it goes. And they can just chirp their way through life like that. But the people that seem to reap the most hardship and the most intense suffering, in my experience, are people who genuinely try to do some good in this world. They've questioned the setup. They've changed their personal behaviors and actions towards trying to be moral, trying to make this world a better place, trying to help others, doing what they know instinctively in their hearts to be right. And in direct response to that, they reap all this shit dumped on them. And I think that comes down to the coding. It sees to it that things play out in this way. So this actually ties into the first comment that I want to read out. And this one was left in response to my last God video. So I'll just read out what this person said. For decades now, I've felt that any small measure of happiness, contentment, or optimism I experience as an adult is always offset by a blow of poor fortune, which triggers spikes of uncontrollable anxiety, fear, pessimism, depression, and sorrow. It's always lurking nearby, no matter how hard I try to shift my mood in the opposite direction. The weather never helps either, when we're constantly being bombarded with geo-engineered chemicals that turn the sky perpetually grey, cutting off the sun's warmth and vitamins, and thus our natural serotonin and dopamine. And I would just say that I found this past winter in England to be particularly depressing, because we had week after week after week of just drizzly rain, and it was soggy and squelchy, and the skies were grey, you couldn't see the sun, and it was day after day after day after day. And it really does have an impact. It does on me anyway. I mean, the chirpy normies just seem to glide through it without even noticing. But it does affect people, and I'm sure it's being done on purpose to induce low mood and low morale and pessimism and all this stuff. So, anyway, back to this comment. I couldn't help but spend several days asking myself, what's the point of it all? Why are we even here? If not to do something positive, to help others or make this world a better place. Surely it can't be just to be born, exist, and then die without ever fulfilling some kind of role or moving our collective experience towards something better. Anyway, I follow many different channels and commentators, including people who are spiritual or who claim to have had out-of-body experiences or near-death experiences, which makes me wonder if there's an entire realm existing in parallel to ours, just beyond our basic perception, then could this one we're currently occupying be only a tiny part of a much bigger picture, just as we can only perceive a tiny fraction of the visible spectrum? So there's a lot there. You know, it was starting out observing that you reap consequences that are the opposite to what we're taught. You know, if you're a good
Yeah.
person, you try and be moral, you don't get good things happen to you in your life. You get the opposite. Meanwhile, if
Yeah.
you're some selfish, narcissistic shit who tramples all over other people's rights in pursuit of your own goals, this realm will facilitate that kind of path for you. But then, you know, he's making the observation here that many people claim to have had OBEs, NDEs, which reinforces the idea that there is something beyond this realm. And, you know, this is only a very small part of it. I just wonder why we were unfortunate enough to find ourselves occupying this realm rather than one which is possibly a bit more pleasant to experience. So, any thoughts there?
Yeah. So coming back to the statement that you get a group of people in this world who live very happy lives on a daily basis without having to go through this joy and hardship catastrophe. I call that the jackpot machine effect. So the creator has deliberately created this realm. So you've got probably, I don't know what percentage we want to call it, 10, 15%, 20% of people who don't undergo that. So to sell the illusion of its authenticity. So it's like a jackpot machine that's rigged. Like if it was rigged and everyone lost money, you'd know it was rigged. So the reality is engineered so that you've got a group of people who don't go through that, and then you've got the other group that do. Now, here's a question. You see, what determines what the type of people that fall into that category and into the other? Is it the case? Is it dependent on how awake you are, or sort of on your chakra system? This is a big question. Or is it a case that there's maybe a set of pre-programmed souls put in place into this reality to just fill in the what do I call, fill in the spaces and to go through that? Because I often find these aren't the people that normally question reality. Do you find that?
Yeah, this is what would be referred to as NPCs,
Yes.
non-player characters.
Yeah. And yeah, you're right. The more you go out and help people, the more you suffer for it. So this is something that I've been thinking about recently. That is it such a case that, let's say I go out and help a child, okay, and is the hardship in correlation equivalent to the good that I did to that child, the equal to the bad that kind of matches it? Or is it like, is it measurable? Like, how do you measure this? Like, if I win £10 on a scratch card and then I lose it the next day, is it so much equally matched as that? Or is there a variable to it? You know, if I feed one person 3 meals a day for a day, like a poor person, and am I going to get 3 bad things happen to me maybe within a space of a month? It's difficult to measure, isn't it? And it's I wonder if there's any kind of quantum physics to that, actually. It's definitely interesting one. But no, I can definitely, yeah, I'm in that mindset. The more good you do, the more you suffer for it. But it's like, how do you measure it? Like, if you go and do, say, volunteer work somewhere, an animal sanctuary, okay, you've done good. So what, 1 month later, what, I'm going to get a big tax bill? So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know how we'd measure it, but it's true.
Yeah, well, it's true, as I say, for a certain class of people or a certain type of people. So I've got a lot of friends. I know a lot of people since I've started doing this work. A lot of people have reached out to me, and I've got to know many of them personally. And every single one who I would count as a good person in terms of they're trying to do the right thing, they're trying to live morally in their behaviors and their lifestyles, every single one is suffering. And it seems to be a bespoke kind of suffering. So it's like an individually tailored package for each person. So it won't be the same for any two people. Somebody might be suffering financially, somebody else is suffering physically in terms of their health, somebody else will suffer in terms of their family relations and all this stuff. And I think we should put our usual disclaimer in here at this point, which is we're not trying to make this a very bleak and hopeless broadcast. Quite the opposite, in fact. We're trying to make this uplifting and empowering and inspirational, and we'll try and end on that kind of note. Because for anyone listening to this sort of conversation for the first time, they might think, oh, what a couple of dark nihilistic guys these are, how depressing talking about this stuff on a Sunday morning. But it goes back to what I was saying earlier. A lot of people are finding value in these discussions, and this state of affairs is the way it is, not because we say it is. It is what it is. We're commenting on what we found, we're observing it, and we're trying to get some stimulating conversation going so that we can at least consider the ideas together and try and work out what might be going on here.
Yeah.
So just going back to the chat here, we've got Jeremy saying, morality in a morally bankrupt world is consumed by the vast sea of corruption. That sounds very poetic. What else have we got? Trolls really are pathetic. Yes, they are. Let's see. It's just never all plain sailing. No, it's not. I've found too that always when things seem to be going well, something very strangely happens to put a spanner in the works. So a lot of people are experiencing this, not just us. At this moment in time, I think we are all living in a very complicated virtual reality. The Truman Show is probably more true than people realize. Maybe that's why they called it the True Man Show. And this ties into the next comment, which I'll read out in a moment. King 77703 says, I was banned from a live stream of the rocket launch for saying no man has ever walked on the moon. Yes, there's always a price to pay for telling the truth. What else? Just looking for any questions here. Sean says, I'm convinced there are actual NPCs in the world, almost in a literal sense. No consciousness whatsoever, put there to keep actual conscious individuals in the system. Yeah, I do wonder about this. I have joked often with my dad about his next door neighbor, this woman who's lived in the same house since 1959. She's 87 now. And, my dad used to have a laugh at her because she was like a robot. He used to describe her as a robot. She would put out her washing on a Tuesday at 10 o'clock. And it was always every Tuesday at 10 o'clock. And everything was very ritualistic. She'd mow her lawn on a Sunday at 11 o'clock or whatever. And she would never deviate from this. And he used to say, oh, she's like a robot, like an NPC. And it just makes me wonder, are there actual people like this? Are they themselves running software? They're running a computer code. Maybe the small number of us who are questioning things and apply critical thought are the genuine, authentic souls who are having meaningful experiences in this realm. And maybe people like that are put there to help facilitate our experiences, but they're not having any genuine, meaningful ones themselves. It really reinforces this idea of NPCs.
Yeah, I mean, coming back to the Gnostic creation story, when we spoke about Yaldabaoth creating living organisms, and my take on that was that I believe that everyone was supposed to be NPCs because it's not good business to have a population that thinks for itself. And all of a sudden, Sophia comes in and breathes life into some of these living organisms to give them that awakeness, or whatever you want to call it, awakened consciousness. And theoretically, you could say that these NPCs, when kind of escaped that breath of the monad, possibly, which is why maybe they then, I'm trying not to sound like I'm putting NPCs down or anything. I mean, we're all part of one universal energy, or whatever you want to call it. But is it, unless it's possible that maybe this breath of the monad didn't reach everybody, so you've got a selection of organisms who have continued to continuously breed with I don't know what to call it now, without that spark of life, and have just continued to be NPCs. But maybe we were all supposed to be like that, perhaps. I feel, that's what I think. It's
Well, it does make you wonder. I get this question all the time from people. They're like, why do you think some people can see through the lies and the fraud and the mind control and the bullshit, but most can't? And this was really accentuated during the COVID era, where a small proportion of the population could see what was getting done to us, but most people were complying with the madness. And if you had to put a percentage on it, out of 100% of the population, I mean, what would you say? During the COVID years, would you say we had like 8 to 10% who could see it? Or is that me being too generous?
8 to 10%. I would say probably 15% at most see it. Probably more than that saw it, could kind of see it, but didn't quite know what to make of it or knew what to do about it. But what I noticed during that COVID era, like within my circle, is even if you try to show someone who bought into the whole thing, show them all the evidence, show them all the alternative information, they still wouldn't wake up. You could show them all the evidence, you could literally put bricks of it in front of them and they still wouldn't wake up. And with that in mind, there's got to be some sort of conscious block there causing that to happen. It's like saying to someone, there's an elephant in the room, and they're like, I can't see the elephant. And you're like, well, there it is. And like, I can't see it. There has to be some conscious blindness there. There's got to be. Something's got to be shut there.
It's like a firewall, isn't it? A spiritual firewall.
Yeah, definitely. I've actually come to the conclusion that you can't awaken these people. Like there's a firewall there, definitely, because you can't awaken them and they can't seem to awaken themselves unless something jolts up their ass. Like you'd need like some sort of rocket up their ass to really jolt their kind of consciousness, because it's like you could put everything in front of them. I mean, there was, during that nonsense, there was a period where people had booked appointments to go and get COVID tests, and they'd cancelled their appointments, and they received a text message after to say they got tested positive when they never went to the appointments. And that happened on such a mass level. I don't know about other countries, it certainly happened here. And those statistics were going towards the statistics to increase the lockdown measures. So I remember talking to someone about this, and they could see it. They could see that this was happening. I said, that person has just received a text to say that they got tested positive. They never even went to the clinic to get tested. And they don't know how, they can't process the information. That's what it is. They just can't, they can't take it in. They just can't, they can't process it. And the next day they're back into conforming with all of it.
They're incapable of taking that information on. And this reinforces the idea that they've been programmed that way. So people were telling me during the COVID years, oh, I've been bashing my head against a wall, trying to get my dad to wake up, or my sister, or my mate at work, or whatever. And no matter how much information I put in front of them, documentation, verifiable evidence, they just can't see it. Well, I think that's the point. They can't see it, and they'll never be able to see it, not in this lifetime anyway. So it becomes an exercise in futility trying to get through to these people, because they've just been programmed not to get it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I was the one walking in supermarkets without a mask on, and I remember one person
The
came up.
wrong way up the fruit and veg aisle in the supermarket. Imagine that.
Oh dear. No, you had these. No, what was it? Oh, I'm trying to think now. Oh gosh, these mask exemption badges that people would just buy online, and yeah, looking back at that, I mean, the vaccines. Uh, I think my mother knew someone who took a vaccine and got alopecia immediately after, just lost all their hair. And the people who've taken these vaccines who are just virtually unrecognizable. But I've noticed this, that people who took those vaccines back then who didn't suffer the consequences at the time are dying now. Have you experienced that? Like a lot of these people who have coincidentally taken the vaccines are starting to die now, some years later. Like there's an effect that's like triggering after so many years.
I think you've just got us kicked off the YouTube live stream.
Oh my God, have I?
That's
Oh
right.
dear.
We use arm spear.
Arm
There was a
spear.
whole load of lingo that emerged during the COVID era to get around
Sorry.
censorship. So big shout out to Dom and Chris of Sheep Farm. They coined the term arm spears and also the 3-dart finish. And I've just been so entrained in using that sort of language instead of the V word. But we still seem to be here. We got 282 watching at the moment, which is great. That's
Wow.
very encouraging. Welcome along, everyone. So hope you're finding some value in this conversation. You mentioned rockets up arses there. And in that regard, Jeremy says NASA don't have Stanley Kubrick to direct their movies these days. Exactly. That's why they can't fake the moon footage well anymore.
Oh dear.
And Eccentric Views says, I miss your COVID rants in 2021. They were so great and satisfying. It helped me to get through the madness here in Melbourne. Welcome along. What time is it in Melbourne? I guess getting on for midnight or 11 p.m., something like that. I can't find them. I want to watch them again. Well, they're all there on my Odyssey channel, so you can go back and watch those if you scroll back far enough. And I think what we're talking about now with all this stuff has kind of taken over from the COVID stuff. So as I mentioned earlier, during those times, a lot of people found solace and encouragement from knowing that many other people were seeing through the bullshit and the lies just like them. And I think we've reached the stage now where these sort of subjects are having the same effect on people, because I've made the comment that if you're into truth, conspiracy, alternative research, if you stay in that game for long enough and you follow all the information, all the evidence where it leads you, whether you come into it looking at music industry stuff, symbolism, mind control, whether you come into it looking at the birth certificate fraud or the financial fraud or the arm spears, medical misinformation, whatever it is, eventually you're going to converge at a singular point, which is where all this other stuff becomes largely background noise, surface detail. And you arrive at a point where you start asking, well, what is this place anyway? What is the true nature of it in which any of this stuff can happen? What does it say about the true nature of this realm and whatever created it? That there are always wars, always conflict, always pain, always suffering, always people going through hardships. That tells us something about why this place was constructed. I think it does anyway. And the true nature of the power that created it, its true motives, what it wanted from this place. And it's not about learning lessons and strengthening your character by going through these hardships, not in my book anyway. So I think this stuff has kind of taken over from those COVID conversations in having a lot of value in that way. Sean says, in response to Sarah, I also don't have kids. Not to judge people that have kids, because there are good people that do, but I cannot help but see it as an act of cruelty. This is the idea of antinatalism, that when you come to realize what this place is really all about, you don't want to be inflicting harm on other souls by causing them to come into this realm and have to undergo this hardship. And I'm actually very aligned with the idea of antinatalism myself. I do actually have children. I've got 2 daughters. who were born way before I started looking into all this stuff, I would make a different decision these days. But it's done now. What else? So yeah, we just got some conversations about antinatalism here and
Sure.
whether it's a good idea or not to bring children into this realm. So I'll read out the next comment anyway, and let's get a discussion going on this. So somebody's written in to say, as someone who actually has experience in video game and software design, it really puts things into perspective when you make the comparison. So this is the analogy of this realm being akin to a kind of virtual reality computer game, which we hear a lot. And it's an idea that I find myself in personal alignment with. A lot of the video games have pretty graphics and it's easy to get lost in it. But behind those graphics is code, and it's just as fake as the rest of this matrix. I enjoy going out and experiencing nature. I'm quite partial to sun, warm weather. I hate the cold, and I like palm trees, quiet beaches, that sort of thing, and admiring the pretty graphics and sensations it can provide. Fact of the matter is, we currently exist within this matrix, and we have to find what we can to keep our minds from snapping. So long as one keeps in mind that even nature is just another part of the system, one won't fall for the rug pulls that comes from that part of it. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, so what they're saying is that many of us find solace in the beauty and the majesty of nature. And this is one of the main arguments that people put forward for this place not possibly being any kind of evil construct, because they say, what about oceans and valleys and rivers and lakes and mountains? They're beautiful. Yes, they are. And many of us find solace going out in nature and being around water and trees, forests and such. But what if all of that is another part of the matrix in terms of coding? That's what it all boils down to when you strip it down to its bare level. Well, then, if being out in nature helps us to navigate our way through this realm and make it from day to day, then of course we should embrace that, because it's whatever gets you through the night, right? Any coping mechanism that works for you should be embraced. And for many people, that involves getting out in nature. But what if all that stuff was coded into this reality to give the impression that this place is basically good? It's a decent, nice place to live. Because despite all the war and all the horror and all the terrible stuff that happens, we've got oceans and mountains, right? So it must be a nice place. Or is it possible that all that stuff was coded in to make us believe that it's fair and it's nice and it's a decent place? I mean, personally, I'm glad that we don't live in complete fire and brimstone, a really obvious hell world where there's gnashing of teeth and fire and, screaming everywhere. I'm glad that we appear to be able to get an escape from that when we go into nature. But ultimately, what if the beauty of nature is just another part of the coding, another aspect of the matrix? So does that make any sense?
Yeah. So it's almost like living life in two phases in a way, because we're in this mindset where we can say, well, this reality was created by a malevolent creator who's not got our best interest in heart, and we have awareness of that. So but then the next day you could go out in nature and get mesmerized by it, and you can't help that because we're inside the system, we're inside the simulation. So that's going to happen. And I think it's, you go out in, like, water is very calm, like being by water, and it's very still. But what's inside the water? Fish, could be a shark. So yeah, it's almost like living life in two phases in that sense. But yeah, if we're going to go out and appreciate certain things, and there's nothing wrong with any of that, do it with peripheral awareness of, maybe at the back of your mind, knowing what we know and what we think about this reality, about how it is, life feeding on life, and having that balance, I suppose, and not shutting off that section of the brain that has full awareness that, okay, we can look beyond this and actually look beyond the trickery. But at the same time, you can have your solace in nature, is the way I look at it.
Well, you touched on it there. People will say mountains and rivers and lakes and stuff are beautiful. Yes, they are to look at. I agree. But also in nature, you have this complete bloodbath that is the so-called food chain, the natural world, where living sentient beings need to prey on other living sentient beings and attack, torture, and kill them in brutal and horrific ways just in order to survive another day. And people will say, it's natural, it's the natural world. Okay, so what does that tell us then about the nature of this place? We've said before that we're not trying to claim that we're God or anything like that, but I can certainly see so many ways in which this world could have been prepared and created differently and more beneficially. Why do we even need to take in food as sustenance? Why is that even necessary? Why could we not have had a reality where either we don't need any kind of sustenance at all because we just have that energy within us, or if we do, it doesn't involve preying on and destroying the lives and causing fear and trauma and ultimately death of other living sentient beings? It wouldn't have been that difficult to have devised things differently. So that tells me that the creator of this realm, the architect of all of this, wanted death, destruction on a daily basis. It's built into the very system, the very nature of this reality, and is going to be there for as long as this realm of existence is there. It's horrific. It cannot be justified morally in any way when there were so many better ways that things could have been done differently. That's the way
Definitely. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of, I don't know if you're familiar with the works of Zecharia Sitchin, who wrote about the Anunnaki of the gods who came from heaven to earth. And there is a concept that talks about, well, humans didn't need to, okay, well, we can't prove this in any way, but what if there was if we're in a situation where maybe at some point in the past where we didn't have to feed on other living organisms in order to survive, and a race such as the Anunnaki or a reptilian race, we're going to call them, sort of came here and interbred with humanity and put in these digestive systems. And we have a reptilian brain, don't we? So, which is like very territorial, get out, this is mine, sort of territorial reptile, the R complex, as they call it, which could have possibly been inserted by this reptilian Anunnaki race during the interbreeding. And that's a whole other story in itself. But worth thinking about, I mean, I along the lines of sort of believing that it was this way from ground up, but there is a story that tells otherwise, if that's something that people want to take more interest in. But I always think, well, okay, well, if you go even further back than that, and the creator that created us to not have digestive systems, well, where is that creator now? So we've been interrupted with, have they busy packed his suitcase and gone off on vacation and left us to it? And so the origin is like, where is that origin that created the balance? It's we just now just dumped it. We just left to it, and this is just how it's been for however many years it's been.
Yeah. Something else that I've addressed on a previous video is the question of why human bodies are designed the way they are. The need to take in physical food and then to pass it out as waste. I mean, when you think about the need to urinate and defecate, it's disgusting. It's just nasty and horrible. Why were bodies designed to need to do that? It wasn't necessary. Things could have been done in so many better ways. Why are these bodies programmed to eventually degrade and decay, bringing pain and turmoil and emotional stress and anxiety with it? We're all going to undergo that. And it's not a happy thought. And again, don't get mad at us for pointing this out, or me for pointing this out. Get mad at the architect of this that designed human bodies to fail. Again, there's so many better ways in which this could have been done.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You just imagine if no living organisms had to feed off anything else for its own survival. And people might say, well, we'd be overpopulated because no one's eating anything. But, there's remedies around that. I mean, we don't know how big the Earth is. We're told it's round. I mean, we don't want to get into a flat Earth debate here. It's going to open up a whole of the conversation. But yeah, it's like, can you imagine if we just didn't need to eat? But not only that, imagine if we didn't need to eat or sleep, and we imagine that what you could do with the time. Imagine the learning process, and eating itself can be tiring. I find, and you eat, and then you go to the toilet, and you find okay, well, a lot of it comes out. And you say, well, what did my body do with the rest of it? It's just like the human body is a factory that inputs and outputs energy. And that's just the way I look at it now. We're just a living factory. We're a factory inside a power station.
Yeah. This is the concept of so-called super soldiers who are created by the CIA and other sort of military intelligence operations. They subject these military guys to sensory deprivation and trauma. It's trauma-based mind control, basically. And what they're trying to create is physical bodies which don't need sleep the way the rest of us do, and they can go days without food, and they have these incredible reserves of strength. So that to me tells me that humans are able to improve on the design of the creator, whatever force created these bodies and these lives. So they've worked out ways that people can go days without sleep, and they don't get tired, they don't need food, they've got enhanced mental clarity. So even they're able to improve on original human physiology design there. Again, that tells us something, I think.
Yeah. Do you often find as well that when you look at this world and the way that it is, it's almost got a sense of immaturity to it, I find? Like the way it's kind of like we've talked about sort of biological systems, but I see a sense of immaturity to it. And sometimes I wonder, have children somewhere created this? Because I don't think you kind of think of it like a superior intelligent creator who's built this realm, which obviously has not been built for positive benefits. And has it just been built as this sick game? Just for
Definitely
people.
a clown joke world, isn't it? When you break it down, it's utterly ridiculous, utterly absurd.
No, definitely.
Just thinking about human physiology, a comment that somebody made to me a while back, which has really stayed with me, is the creator of the human body was having a laugh when they placed the waste disposal system right next to the entertainment center. So talking about, genitalia, male and female, are right next to the point where waste product comes out. So it's almost as if it's like mockery to have placed those two centers so close together. It's a good point, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And
It's just ongoing.
the reproductive area as well, is right next to where you get rid of waste. So it's almost tragically poetic in terms of the design.
Yeah. No, it's got I think it's definitely got a sense of malevolence to it. But I also see a childlike quality in all of this. I can't describe it too well, but it almost feels like sometimes I wonder if the archons are just playing Monopoly with this. You roll the dice, and one person you move them 2 steps forward, another one 2 steps back, and is something out there playing Monopoly with our lives. And you get these snowballs where you turn them upside down and the snow falls, and you turn them the other way. And what if we're like a dome and you've got these archons right above us looking at us like we're like a snowball, and thinking, oh, we'll move, and this is all a game to them. And if it is that way, I mean, we've got a real problem. And I so want to believe that after death that there is free consent to just go back to the source, whatever it is that we describe that as. Because if we're in a situation where you die and and I try not, this is all bleak as it is, but I try not to go here into this thought that what if we're here without our consent? What if we forced it? What if we coerced here? And I hope it's not that way. But let's say you go there and they say, well, you're going back whether you like it or not. And they're like a dentist chair where they strap you down and say, right, this is it. And you're trying to get out. And I hope it's not that way. I really don't.
Well,
but it's a scary thought.
I actually hope for oblivion beyond physical death. And people, when they hear that, are often triggered to be horrified, and they say, oh, that's terrible. How can you want that? But just think about it. If we're not enjoying these lives, and we're having this discussion today where we're observing the fact that we don't remember how we got here, and we could well be here without our consent, and we realize all the terrible things that go on in this world, why then is the idea of total negation from it so horrific? Just like ceasing to exist. So you don't know anything, and you don't realize you're missing anything. It's not like you're in a state where you can think, oh, I wish I was alive again, because you have no consciousness with which to think. You just don't exist. I actually find that very reassuring. And I seem to be in a minority, because very few people have ever said that to me, that, after I physically die, I just wish to not exist in any way, shape or form. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that that's what lies beyond. And I think there's a fair chance that it does. I don't know how I reconcile that with the idea of NDEs, OBEs, all these people that claim to have gone to other spiritual realms and gone to the astral, the lower fourth dimension and such. I don't know how all that kind of tallies together. But I guess it might be just wishful thinking. It's what I hope for, just a complete negation of existence. That to me is quite a reassuring idea.
If you had a choice to exist in a realm where we didn't have digestive systems and you existed having the things that you wanted, would you choose that, or would you still rather choose non-existent over that existence?
I'd still choose oblivion.
Okay.
I would. I just think the title of one of my previous videos was "Existence is Overrated." And as negative and pessimistic as some people might find that, that's how I feel. I would just prefer not to exist. But that's just me. What do I know?
No, it's okay.
What do I know? What do any of us know?
You hear stories of out-of-body experiences, and when you hear those, I don't know if there is a way you cannot exist at all and have no consciousness. I mean, one thing I really want to get into are stories of these children who remember past lives with such accuracy, because I'm interested to know, like, how do we get a group of children that do remember compared to a whole group of children that don't? Is it the indoctrination system of the schooling that if it wasn't for that, maybe more children would remember? I don't know. But is it something where the memory wipe doesn't go through properly, or maybe has a flaw in it, where some children wake up and remember and say, oh, I know what I was in my last life, and all the research goes on and they verify it? So that's an interesting area that I'm looking at, that I really kind of want to get into at some point. It's kind of intriguing me, because what if it, like, imagine if they put you in a kind of a dentist chair and say, right, memory wipe, put the headgear on, and something goes wrong with the machine and you come back here with 50% of your memory wiped and the others, so like you remember. It's interesting to think about. It's something I want to get into.
Yeah, there you go. Another question unanswered. So this kind of ties in with another comment I wanted to read out. This is from Steve of the Sovereign Group, who was one of my previous guests. I did a show with him last year talking about all this stuff. He says, I just watched your reverse karma video. The really decent people I've known over the years who have been repeatedly hammered in this realm with the shits in this world living it up. So, yeah, just reinforcing the idea of reverse karma. And he says, I'm not actually too black pill about this. I sort of take this suffering as a positive symbol, it being a reinforcement that we're on the right track. Our bodies are only vessels, and this life is transient. So, as hard as it is, I'd prefer to suffer, knowing I'm a sovereign spirit and getting out of here, than having a party here and not getting out. No amount of money or pleasure seeking can compensate for that. So, when we look at the so called elite ruling class, we see many of them living to ripe old ages. You know, they often live to 95, 100. And it seems that oftentimes they're employing methods of prolonging their life. And this indicates that they feel so attached to this realm because they've made it work for themselves. They've realized that the way to get ahead in this reality is to align yourself with the coding. So if the coding has been put in place to facilitate fear, pain, suffering, and hardship, then they figure that they might as well get on the right side of that fight, which is those that are helping to perpetuate those things in the world. And that's why we see many of them getting very rich, very wealthy, very powerful, and living to ripe old ages, because they seem to fit right in to this realm. They're having a ball here. They've made it work for them. They see themselves as kings and gods of this realm. Whereas what this guy Steve is saying is, you know, forget all that. I would rather suffer, if we have to suffer through reverse karma, through doing good things and trying to live moral lives, then I would rather do that than become a selfish shit and be overly attached to this realm, because I want to break free of that base consciousness and get the hell, excuse the pun, out of here. So, yeah, I see the point there. I would rather make that choice as well.
No, I'm in that mindset as well. I'm now coming to the point where, look, I'm just going to keep helping as far as I practically can. If life wants to punish me for it, just take it, you know, just go against the coding. Yeah. But I see it happens to me all the time, and I haven't stopped. So I'll just carry on in this help mentality, and I'll keep going as far as I can. Although what I've found in my life is I almost feel like the system out there that kind of controls this balance of joy and suffering, it almost teases me sometimes. I've found, like, if there's some joy, and sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm going to get some hardship at some point. It's just a question of when it's going to arrive, and sometimes I can almost feel it arrive, and it doesn't. And it's like, okay, I'm wondering if there's any kind of AI, like what I call the parent code, if it knows that I'm aware of it now, so it's trying to tailor its approach to this now, and maybe it's like a learning system. But one thing I've learned is that whilst it can control circumstances in your life, it can't control your reaction to it. So, I mean, I know much of this conversation may seem bleak and dark, but if we're going to put a little bit of positive on it, in my experience, I've learned that it can't control your reaction to it. So I've had a lot of instances recently where I thought, okay, here's the hardship for that joy I suffered last week. It's here, it's there, but let me try and react to it differently. And I had one experience one day where I did that, and I started to experience something, what I would call sort of discomfort, like continuously, almost like, okay, we didn't get him the first time, so we got to throw another one at him to get him down because the first time didn't work. And it's about what I was saying before, like, how do you measure it? It's oh gosh, it's interesting to think about. You know, if you're trying to, okay, parent code, I've suffered now, then okay, then it stops. So it's an easy one to play around with.
It seems to be like a pendulum swing to me.
Yeah.
So in my personal experience, when I undergo particular hardships and problems and bullshit, a really intense period of that. It lasts for a while, but then it subsides and it gets a bit better. And it's like the pendulum has swung as far to one extreme as it's going to. Now it's swinging the other way. And then you might be lucky enough to enjoy a few days where things are going basically okay. You might even have a bit of joy and happiness. But then the pendulum will swing to that extreme, and then it swings back the other way. And then some more bullshit comes into your life. And then the bullshit subsides. And it's like this continual process for me. And I've actually started making a conscious effort to just enjoy myself more without guilt. Because when I first got into this conspiracy game and I started looking at some of the horrible stuff that happens in the world, whenever I would find myself having a bit of fun, I would actually feel guilty for it, because I'd be like, here I am enjoying myself in my nice life when these people are out there suffering, children in SRA or MK Ultra victims or whatever, war victims. I shouldn't be enjoying myself like this. But I've completely changed my outlook on all that now, because I know personally that I've done as much as I reasonably could over the past several years to try and improve this place, to try and put out empowering messages, to try and facilitate better situations. And why shouldn't I enjoy a bit of pleasure if I can? Why shouldn't I find little pockets of enjoyment? I shouldn't feel guilty for it, because I didn't ask to be undergoing any of this stuff. And if those little pockets of joy, wherever I can find them, are mechanisms that enable me to continue, just to be able to get up another day and continue to put the work in, then that's no bad thing. So, yeah, I've started trying to enjoy some of the things that this realm of existence has to offer, as well as observing all the bad stuff. And that's been a change of strategy for me in recent times.
Yeah, and as I mentioned in my email now, whilst I pretty much think about this stuff every day, but I've made a promise to myself to have at least 2 positive days in a week to stop myself from going insane. So I said, look, okay, you can do all your research, but have 2 days in a week that are positive, disconnect, and have 5 days talk about this subject, and it just keeps me balanced. But yeah, no, you're right. There's nothing.
And do it guilt-free.
Yeah.
Because this is what religions do. They try and shame people. So they'll say, you must behave in this way and you can't do this, or God will hate you, or you'll go to hell, or whatever. And they're kind of shaming you into taking on certain behaviors in your own life. So you become your own police, your own gatekeeper. You're policing yourself because of what's been indoctrinated into you. And that's what they want. They want you feeling guilty and shameful, like, oh, I shouldn't be enjoying myself too much. That's a central tenet of the systematic mind control that comes through religions.
Yeah, and again, it's not like a criticism of religion or anyone who subscribes to that. Each to their own. But for me, the belief in the God Creator is a mentality of servitude, and it's separation between you and that conscious force, whereas I'm under the belief that we are that force at our core. We are all part of that universal energy, as opposed to a God being separate from us. I'm under the belief that we are all that energy, and that's the mindset that I have now, as opposed to a mindset of servitude, as to serve another force. More like we are that force and we need to exercise that.
Sure.
Yeah.
345 watching on the live stream at the moment. That's good numbers for a discussion of this nature. I looked a short while back and it was 322. Of course it was. Matrix coding, that important occult number. But we're up to 346 now, so welcome along to everyone. Just glancing through the comments here. So Shari Lives from a while back said, the best decision I ever made was not having children. Nobody will ever change my mind. Yeah, I can comprehend that. Daniel says, please do more live streams. I think we probably should. Let's see, new comments. What have we got? As one Marxist said, they play on people's sympathy. Where's that comment gone? It's just disappeared. Let me try and get that back. As one Marxist said, they play on people's sympathy, guilt, and empathy to control them, making people accept the rotten stuff they dish out. Indeed. Matrix is Real says, real humans are only evil due to selfishness. If they knew the truth through past life memory and that we are connected to the Akashic ether records, no one would be evil or selfish. This is a hijacked realm. Okay. Blu-ray says, I feel the capacitors are shut off when one is born because it doesn't suit the dynamics of this dense realm. So the uniqueness of one's gifts doesn't get seen or nurtured. Okay, what else? It's a horror movie. All humans are traumatized sooner or later, says Zia8XXX. That does seem to be the case. Trauma is the key to so much. And you get specialists in that area saying that we're traumatized at birth. So from the moment we come in, particularly through the hospital birth system, you know, if you come from the spiritual realm, you suddenly find yourself thrust into the physical. When you come out of your mother's womb, you're in this hospital room with artificial fluorescent lighting, and there's a bunch of people standing around, and they smack a baby's ass to make it cry. And they say, oh, it's to get the fluid off the baby's lungs. No, it's not. It's to traumatize the child from the very second it comes into this world. And it's preparing it for the life of trauma that's going to follow. So, yes, trauma is key to so much. What else have we got? Jeremy, the struggle begins when the sperm fertilizes the egg. It probably does. No turning back from that point.
Yeah.
What else? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger? What a place. Does it? Or does it just grind you down? We're literally in a fight for survival, says Susie Tracy. Every living entity in this realm has to take in nourishment and create waste. If the need for survival was taken away, would life as... What's this? Would life be as precious? And any others here? Plenty of comments from Sean. The memory wipe happens through social engineering. Intuition is humbug, and when we are young, it's not nourished and enhanced. By the age of 1, we've lost the memory and begun to spellcast, talk through the spelling that is language. All right, I think I'll just read another comment here. So Louisa left a comment next to one of the previous videos about the reincarnation soul trap. So we mentioned this earlier. She says, sure. I've watched and listened to much talk of this, but I feel that this myth has possibly been created to put fear into us when we already experience so much fear in this realm. I feel we won't need to worry as our souls are sovereign. So this goes back to my question of earlier. Could the reincarnation soul trap concept be another method of inducing fear and trauma in us and making us anxious about what's going to happen when we leave these bodies? And then I'll just read this one out. This is quite a long one, so let me try and summarize. How do you know that you are good? I know that I had a lot of tendencies that would make me unsuitable for a better place. Chief among them was that for a long time I believed people were generally good. That kind of naivety is a prerequisite for a hell realm. If I had arisen in a better place and interacted with others who thought as I had, we would inevitably recreate the conditions here. I thought the world was malfunctioning and needed fixing. I was wrong. I chose my weaknesses and fascinations. I am the only thing I can fix. So this person is basically saying that people aren't good at their base core state, like we prefer to think of them as. This is something that Mark Passio has spoken about at length in his What on Earth is Happening broadcasts. You know, Mark, a lot of people watching this will be familiar with him. He came out of various dark occult and satanic groups. He says that he was raised in a traditional Roman Catholic Italian-American family, and he rejected that religion because he could see it was all mind control and propaganda, and it caused him to veer towards the exact polar opposite of what had been conditioned within him, which was to gravitate towards Satanism, very nihilistic worldview. And eventually he broke out of those groups when he came to realize what their true intentions were for humanity. And he says that in all good conscience, he could no longer be a part of those programs. And so he instead started to dedicate his time and his resources to exposing what he had come to learn during his time in the satanic ranks. And he's been doing that for almost 20 years with his What on Earth is Happening broadcasts. So Mark is somebody who pulls no punches, and he's known for real talk. He says what needs to be said in direct street language. He doesn't pussyfoot around, as viewers of his broadcast will know. He gets very passionate, hence his name, Mark Passio, very angry, very animated. And he feels that the problems in this realm arise from the fact that people, humans, are basically no good. You know, they've got no moral values. And the reason this realm is in such a terrible state is because humans won't adopt moral behaviors in their lives, and they won't align themselves with right action. I used to be completely aligned with that viewpoint, but as I mentioned earlier, I've now come to realize that reverse karma is in effect in this realm. So if you're a good moral person who tries to help others and make this world a better place, you're not going to reap consequences that enhance your life and are beneficial to your life. Quite the opposite, as we've discussed. And, you know, Mark will say humans are bad, people are just bad, they're garbage, they've got no morals. I don't really subscribe to that point of view, because I feel that we have all found ourselves dumped in this realm. We don't know why or how, what the purpose of any of it is, and we're left to make the best of it. And I think that we're gaslit into thinking that we're the problem. You know, everything bad that happens in this place is our fault. It's guilt tripping, it's shaming again. I think nobody asked to be here, just my personal view. And we've all got to make the best of it. And we're all facing very challenging circumstances. We've all got trauma in our lives. We're finding ourselves in a realm which is steeped in fear, pain, and suffering, and has been facilitated to bring those states of being about. And we're all just trying to navigate our way through it. Sure, there are selfish people, there are narcissistic people who only look out for themselves. But I like to think, and I do think, that most people at their core are basically good. You know, they would help others if they could. They would make this world a better place if they could. It's just that everyone's under mind control. Everyone's been conditioned and programmed to think and behave in a certain way. And as we were saying earlier, it seems only a small proportion of the population are able to break free of that and ask the big questions in life and align themselves with what they know to be true moral behavior. I mean, there's a lot there. I think the takeaway from it is I'm not as harsh on humanity as people like Mark Passio. I don't bash others as much as he does, because I see us all as victims. I see us all in the same boat. I see animals in the same way, all living sentient beings, all creatures. That's why I've got a lot of compassion towards any living sentient being, because we're all here together. We're all suffering. We're all trying to make the best of it. We're all trying to survive. We're all trying to avoid pain and hardship. So we're all in the same boat, basically, and none of us know why we're in that boat.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I don't think people at their core are bad people. I think, as you said, like at our core, we are just pure intuitive energy. We know right from wrong. It's unfortunate that we have a physical body that's encased over us with these mechanisms in place to eat, to sleep. And in addition to that, you've got the educational system, which is like total indoctrination. Parents, if they're not awake, will further enforce that indoctrination on their children. You've got social conditioning, you've got media brainwashing. It's from all angles. So we've got so much to contend with, and to reach that inner core and to get past all of that and to actually get to your inner core is a challenge in itself and quite an exercise. So yeah, that's what I'd add to that. No, you're right. I think people are bad people at their core. We've just been hit at all ends from all corners. Yeah.
Yep, I feel so. So 368 on the stream now. Great stuff. Zia8XXX says, why do you think it takes zero effort to reproduce? Even an idiot can do it. Why do you think porn is everywhere? They want us to breed. It feeds this nightmare. Well, there's that, but there's also the promotion of the LGBTQ agenda, which is an agenda promoting lifestyles which don't lead to reproduction and never will. So I don't know how you reconcile those things. It just seems there's various different social engineering agendas at play at any given time. You know, a psyop upon a psyop upon a psyop.
Yeah, I mean, I have a different opinion on that slightly, in the sense that, I mean, sex is not a bad thing. Yes, sex leads to reproduction, but it also has a spiritual benefit to it. And interestingly, the cult that control this planet have ostracized any kind of sexual openness, as we call it, which is why we are so sexually suppressed. So I do have a bit of a different take on that. Yes, okay, there's a reproduction element to it, but there's also a very sort of a high spiritual conscious awareness element of it, which doesn't really get talked about much enough, I feel, on that one. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Jeremy GB1 says, become pagan. Christianity is a system of control. Hail Odin. Don't know if he's being ironic there or not, but okay, fair enough. What else have we got? So if anyone's got any actual questions, there's plenty of observations and comments here, and they're great, but actual questions that you'd like us to address or consider, drop those in the chat now, because if we don't get any actual questions, then we'll probably end this quite soon. So what else? Let's see. Monopods. I've had a bizarre life based on searching for answers. I seem to have ended up as almost an atheist despite years wasted on spiritual quests. Yeah, I mean, I've been through these different situations myself where I don't even know what I describe myself as now. I guess agnostic makes the most sense, because that means the absence of knowledge, which is what we've admitted we have. You know, plenty of questions, but not too many answers. So if you're going to stick a label on it, agnostic, I think makes the most sense. That's what Eric Dubay says. You know, he says the most sensible stance to take is to say that you're agnostic. You just don't know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, Gnosticism, I mean, out of all the historical texts, Gnosticism is a very few, and Catharism, the states that the world was created by an evil creator as opposed to a loving one. And that immediately gets my attention. Does it have all the answers? No. You know, does it have loopholes? Yes. But, you know, the Gnostics were suppressed and destroyed for a reason. So, you know, if the cult are going to come out and destroy something, what have that society got that is so threatening to this cult? Is the way I look at it, and you take bits and pieces of it and you put in your own spin on it and your own beliefs on it, which is what I've done. But yeah, we don't claim to know it all. But yes, I'm very lean towards Gnosticism because it does coincide with the way I see the world. And again, not an expert, don't know it all, but I do resonate with a lot of it.
I mean, it just amazes me that everyone doesn't ask the kind of questions that we are on this show. How is it even possible that you've got people walking around and it's apparently never occurred to them to question exactly what they are, where they came from? I'm not talking about mum and dad. I'm talking about where they originally came from. And what are they doing here? What is this place? What's the point of it? What's the point of life? You know, how can people not have these questions? You can walk into a Weatherspoons pub and you hear people talking about sport, football, who we're playing this weekend, what was on telly last night, what their missus is cooking for dinner this evening. But you never hear discussions about, what is this place? What are we doing here? I never hear that. And I go in a lot of Weatherspoons. So it's not the sort of chat you hear. And yet,
No.
what could be more important? It's a bit more important than the football and last night's EastEnders, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, I'm the same. I can't do small talk. I can probably do a little bit when just to probably fit in now and again, but it frustrates the hell out of me. It's like you go to, wherever your usual social gathering, wherever it is, and there's the usual talk. Oh, what did you have? A nice dinner? What did you watch for TV? And did you watch the football? And the next day it repeats all over again and again. And it's Groundhog Day, and it's like small talk, small talk, small talk. I can't do it, And but if you ever tried, like, if we talk about NPCs, you go up to an NPC and you start asking, and you say to them, "Well, I've been asking questions such as, why am I existing? Why am I here? Where am I going? And what's the meaning of life?" And they'll look at you like with the most stillest face in the world, like they can't process these questions, like. All I can remember is what I had for dinner last night, and that's it. And it's like they can't quite. If you bring these questions to them, they'll just freeze. They they can't process it, and it's like, nah, I think I'll just put EastEnders back on. Thank you very much. I can't deal with it. And okay, it's not for everybody.
I remember years ago walking back from the afternoon school run with a mum of a young kid, and we were chatting away, walking through a field, and it was a heavy chemtrailing day because I was watching the skies a lot in those days. And I said to her, "Look at that! Just look up at that. Don't you think it's disgraceful what they're doing?" And she, not only would she not look up at the sky, she just refused to do it. She just walked off.
Oh,
said nothing and walked off and never spoke to me again. Which is
oh,
incredible. It's like you were saying earlier, this blockage, there's like a firewall. They just cannot see it, to the point that they won't even look at the frigging sky. And it's probably like that with these big questions as well. People are just programmed not to consider who or what they are and where they come from and all this stuff.
There must be something in our DNA then that, I'm not trying to say that we're special over anyone else, not from that sense, but there must be something in your DNA that has that in you to question life and ask these questions. I was asked these questions when I was a toddler. I remember like 3 and 4 years old. I was on a wall thinking, why am I here? And I'm 44 now. I'm still asking these questions. They've never stopped because they bug me, and it bothers me how more and more people can't ask these questions. But now thinking about it, like, even if you try, you can't wake some of these people up, and it's, even if you can do, it's so much energy out of you as a person. It's not worth all that energy. You just got to concentrate on people who are probably halfway there, and then concentrate the rest on yourself.
Yeah, that's right. It makes me wonder about those percentage figures that we were discussing earlier. Out of 100% of the population, you might say 85% are just in a mind control trance, never ask questions. Maybe 15%, you'd be doing well if you get to 15, seem to be having more meaningful experiences, asking questions, doing something worthwhile and constructive with their lives. So is it possible that only like 15 to 20% of the population at any given time are authentic souls having meaningful experiences, and the remaining 80 to 85% are there to facilitate those experiences as backdrop people? It does make me wonder. So just going back to the comments here, Mr. Chef Eats, this realm is a prison for the soul. It's designed to break you both physically and mentally. Maybe it's to build strong foundations for whatever comes next. Well, maybe it is. Fanny Haddock, nice name. I think we find more people talking about what's really going on and who we are and such once things get weirder. They're not weird enough already? Because of the fake alien invasion agenda. Well, I hope that one's not coming. Got my doubts about it. Is there any proof of a soul/spirit? Asks Marvin Steve. Who knows? Matrix is Real says, very few grasp this. It hasn't always been like this. When the deep state was in control, not even we knew about the deep state, etc. Now it's apocalypse revealing time. So yeah, we do know a lot more now than any previous generation ever has about the true nature of this place and the stuff that goes on within it. And it does feel like a time of great revealing or apocalypse in many ways to me. What else have we got? Just seeing if there's any actual questions here. So true that Hitesh says monopods. I was overjoyed to see this Q&A because I don't have anybody to talk to. So welcome along. You know, that's what these shows are all about, is finding fellowship with each other. There's a lot of value in that. And what else do we have?
It's not like
During
you
this,
can go to a
during the
grocery.
scam, sorry?
Sorry, I was going to say, it's not like you can go to average grocer and talk about the soul trap, is it? It's like you can't just talk about it to just anybody.
Yeah. Vargas 2022, this system works on waking people up. I used to be an NPC, but all I wanted was to be left alone. This system leaves no one alone. Maybe another reset will be what it takes for everyone to remember. I think that's what it comes down to. The reason most people don't want to face up to harsh truths in this world is because all they basically want is a comfortable life. They just want the easiest, most painless possible path through life. And I get that, of course. You know, we all want that. We'd all like to have easy, comfortable, cozy lives if we can. And a lot of people will ignore so much of what's going on and just block it out, just so long as they can be left alone to live their lives as comfortably as possible. And for some reason, there's a small number of us who, though we would like cozy, comfortable lives, and I certainly would, realize that this place is so fucked up that we're not going to achieve that. So we may as well use our time and resources and the intelligence that's been afforded to us to ask questions, engage in certain behaviors, push back against tyranny and hardship and slavery wherever we see it, even though we know it's probably going to bring this reverse karma, negative consequences to us. Still, we can't just sit idly by and watch this place continue the way it is when there are small contributions that we could be making. The likes of us just feel compelled to do that. And it comes from a place of conscience, which makes me wonder what a conscience is. I did a broadcast a while back called Conscience as a Curse. And I wondered if consciences have been imbued within us so that we'll always gravitate towards doing what we consider to be right. But that's going to cause us to come up against great hardship, which is going to be thrown back in our direction in direct response to that. So is it a good thing to have a conscience? There's a question to ponder. It certainly doesn't benefit us in many ways to have a conscience, but I can't imagine living any other way, personally speaking. I can't imagine aligning myself with the so-called elites and becoming a selfish, narcissistic bastard that tramples all over other people. And that's the way it is for folk like us, right?
Yeah. But you notice, like, people who do bad things to others get the rewards. The universe rewards them for it because the world is energetically synchronized to reward evil. It's just coded that way. And I'll have my moments sometimes where I'll have a happy day due to, it could be anything, going out walking in nature and whatever, but I have to remember at the same time that I'm happy, another living organism is suffering. A cow in a battery farm or a child in poverty at the exact time that I'm happy right now. So, you can only really perceive your existence in the moment, but I suppose it's about having that peripheral awareness. And if you do experience any joy, having it with some kind of awareness that there's suffering out there, maybe without sort of going a bit crazy over it. But you just, it's like coming back to what you said earlier, like you don't feel guilty for enjoying what you find solace in, as long as you have this sort of wider awareness of the world, as opposed to this kind of tunnel vision where you think about me, and just focus on the I. And I get told a lot of time, well, be grateful for having a job, and be grateful for having food on the table, and have all this gratitude. But I'm not in that mentality anymore. I don't go into that, because I still think that's I focused. I am grateful. It's very focusing on the I, and I'm trying to steer away from that now, and get into this mentality of serving and helping others as much as I can, because I can get satisfaction out of that at the same time as finding solace and joy in the things that I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Monopod BS says, I've been very close to a few people when they were alive who I regarded as true soulmates. None of the lazy sods have ever made contact after they died over the years. So, yeah, I resonate with that one, because my mother passed away in early 2025, and me and my dad tried reaching out to her in any way we could. And we said, if you're still conscious in some way and you're aware of us, please send us some sort of message. And we've received precisely nothing. And I've been told over the years that I have all the spirituality of a block of concrete, which might be why nothing came through. But it seems you get a large number of people who claim to have had spiritual experiences, OBEs, NDEs, and they're in touch with the spirit world, and they have spirit guides, and they see ghosts and this sort of thing. And then you have people that have none of that whatsoever, including myself. So again, it seems like a certain proportion of the human population is geared up towards being aligned with all that stuff, and others are just not. So I wonder what the percentage would be on that one.
Did you go to a medium to try and connect with your mother?
Yeah, I did that.
Okay, no look, no.
No, nothing, just precisely nothing.
No.
And I'm prepared to accept that maybe I'm just not of an appropriate constitution to receive spiritual messages, because other people seemingly do, and they're seemingly genuine and sincere in terms of what they relate. So my question would be, why does that happen to some people but not at all to others?
Well, I mean, you look at mediumship, you see it on television sometimes, don't you? Oh, by the way, your dead grandmother's communicating with me through you, and she says this and all that. And like, how do you know if any of that is true? There's so many variables to that. It could be an archon, disguised as the person who you think that it is. You don't know if it's genuinely that person. It's just you're in that moment, in you're emotional, so it's only natural to succumb to those sort of situations. But again, as we've already said, the spiritual realm with all this has totally been corrupted. I recently went to like a crystal healing event, and with knowing what I know now, I had some very interesting conversations. I had like a tarot card reading, but I also had I was talking to this one medium, and I was talking about what we talk about, the soul trap, and how I think the world is created by a malevolent creator, and Gnosticism, and she says to me, "Oh, we're here to learn lessons, and we're here to learn how to love," and I literally just spewed out all this information, and yeah, she wasn't budging from this, and I just feel a lot of those people are really fixated in that realm. And okay, that's their journey, each to their own journey, is what I can say. Look, I'm sure you're not a bad person. If this is your journey, then you go right ahead. But yeah, it's just it's been corrupted, I feel.
Yeah. Just talking about matrix coding, I just took a look at the time, and it was 12:50. And I've mentioned before that I see expressions of my born date everywhere I look. So my born date is 12th of May, which is 12/5. And there it was. And I just see this number everywhere. And look at this. I don't know if people can see this. These are the headphones I use. You see that?
Oh, yeah.
Newmark 125. So
yeah,
it's even there in the bloody catalog number or the brand number of my headphones, 125, 12.5, 12th of May. It's everywhere. And to me, this is mathematical, computer-style matrix coding that brings numbers and synchronicity, synchromysticism into people's lives. It expresses itself big time in the form of numbers. Do you ever get that with numbers?
I've never really thought about that personally. No, I mean, I know that there probably is some kind of mathematics to how this reality is coded, and like there's if you use like photo editing software like Photoshop and etc. and some of the other photo editing software, there's like two modes where you can go into, where like code mode and the visual mode, where you see the reds and all the colors, and behind all that is coding, which is very interesting because there's this book written by a chap, I believe it's called Michael Talbot, who wrote The Holographic Universe, who talks about how our world is a hologram and there could be some kind of mathematical sort of coding behind it. And it's something I personally haven't done that much research into. But what I do think about is, like, if we have this system that brings us the hardship on the back of the joys, is there a mathematical limit to that system as to what they can put in your life? Because they may throw all these things at you, such as bills and bad day at work or family disputes, but is there a limit to how far they can go? Because like, how far does it take where they say, okay, well, we've got to take this person out of the system, in other words, kill him? Okay, so how do we enforce that, or is that contracted before we get here? Because the inkling I get is, like, with me personally, I feel that something out there is trying to keep me alive, and I can't explain what it is, but I still feel that there's something out there controlling my circumstances, so that if I do experience joy, that I'll experience unhappiness the afternoon after or the day after. But whatever it is still trying to keep me alive. So it's got me thinking to the point where, is this system fragile to a degree, or does it have limits? Do you ever think about that?
Well, you have the old concept of, if a tree falls in the woods and there's no one there to hear it, does it make a sound? So in other words, this reality only exists because we're here to perceive it. If we weren't here to perceive it into existence, it wouldn't be here. So the Matrix needs us in that sense. It needs our energy, it needs our consciousness to empower the system. So in effect, we're empowering our own prison, if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of analogies there related to the Matrix movie, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're just coming up to 2 hours. We've done just under 2 hours. We've got 383 watching, so I'm very happy with that. It's the first live stream we've done. I think that's pretty good numbers. Yeah, and a few people are in agreement with the idea of numerical synchromysticism and that being caused by this sort of matrix coding realm. Lorraine says, 808 follows me everywhere. Every day I see those numbers. AD Walker 89 says 33 and 333. Dabif says same, 333 and 111. Sean O'Connor says same way. And yeah, just a lot of agreement there. So I want to thank everyone on the live chat, everyone that's got their contributions in, everyone for watching. We should definitely do another one of these. I think it's gone very well. And you up for doing another one, Hitesh?
I'm absolutely up for doing another one. And thank you, Mark, for having me back. And thank you to your audience for all the comments and the questions, and for making this a great event. It's been fantastic, and I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed reading a lot of the comments, and it's been great. And I'd love to do another one. Yeah, I mean, we can just keep them going.
Sure. And if we're going to leave on a positive note, as we always try to, I think it's just reinforcing that a show of this nature with the input from all these people is very cathartic. It's cathartic for us, and it's cathartic for a lot of the people watching, because it's just helpful and beneficial to know that other people see things in the same way or in a similar way to how you do. There's fellowship there, there's camaraderie. That's what brought so many of us together during the COVID era, particularly on those marches. You know, the sense of togetherness on those events was incredible, palpable. And I'm getting the same sense from this show, and just knowing that a lot of people are starting to see things in this kind of way. As we said at the start, these are topics and subject areas whose ideas, whose time seems to have come right now.
Brilliant. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and remembering back to those marches, I mean, we had people from different ages, creed, colors, backgrounds. Everyone just joined, and it was just amazing. You almost feel like now that that event's gone, everyone's gone back to their normal lives. And I keep telling people, I know they're giving us a rest, but they'll be back. You know, they're giving us a bit of a break. But okay, they did it with the digital ID thing, and they failed at that. But they'll keep trying. So we just have to keep. We have to keep the momentum up, and we have to.
Yeah, come on, man. We're going out on a positive vibe here.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this show will, of course, be available to watch back on YouTube, the recording, but also I'm going to put it on my Odyssey and my Rumble, and I'm going to put the audio of it on my Spreaker. And feel free to post at your end, Hitesh. And if anyone wants to get their feedback in for the next show that we do, questions, comments, observations, you can email me personally on markdevlin2022@protonmail.com. And do you have an email address there, Hitesh, where people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, transformtheillusion@protonmail.com. I know it's on the description of our initial talk, and yeah, feel free to put it on the description of this one as well. If I can just ask people just to keep the emails short, please don't make them too long. I cannot physically reply to every long email. I just can't do it. So yeah, if you do email me, please do send me.
You mean you don't like getting emails that say, "Dear Hitesh, I've had a fascinating life. I was born on this date in this hospital, and then I moved here, and then I moved there." You don't like those?
Oh no, I do, but like some of them, as long as an encyclopedia that was so long, it's like I can't read all this.
Yeah.
So yeah, just keep it short if you can.
I get those. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks to everyone for watching. Great show. A lot of value in doing this, I feel, and we'll definitely do another one. So cheers for now.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.